Welcome back to The Edge, everybody. When you've got state-of-the-art pundits and state-of-the-art technology in the studio, it's time to mesh them together. We've got Stephen Finn on the telestrator for you. Finny, what have you picked out from the morning session?
Well, I'll give it a good go. We're going to start with England winning the toss and having a bowl first. They opted to do so because the average first innings score is 289. The pitch was very green, and they gave themselves the opportunity to find that lateral movement that you can see from back of a length, and it was the length that was the slight problem here. New Zealand able to easily leave balls outside the off stump. Brydon Cast came into the attack, started a touch wide, and it just meant that both teams sussing each other out like boxers. New Zealand were able to get through that first storm relatively easily, and now some evidence to back that up. You see the pitch map here behind. The two wickets will show up later in this, but these are the lengths of the England bowlers through that morning session. The two wickets, those green blobs, much, much fuller. The area that the England bowlers would have wanted to be targeting is around there, where my A-level art degree has come in fine handiness there. Now, why might the England bowlers have been bowling a touch short? And they were slipping slightly with their front feet. And when you're a bowler, you want your centre of gravity to be still as you get to the crease. Gus Atkinson's foot there slides forward. Ben Stokes bowls one that balloons over the batter's head. Why is that? Well, Tucker signals wide. He's fell in a heap on the floor because his foot was coming out the back of the foothole. And that's a real problem when you're a bowler and that green, grassy, moist, damp surface. Your spikes can't quite manage to grip hold of it, and your foot just kicks out the back of the foothole. And it means that your head and everything is wobbling as you come through the crease, and it makes it really difficult to settle in on a good length and find that good length. Brydon Cast later in the day as well, also struggling to find his feet. Maybe a touch of tiredness there as well with the effort that he put in through the day. But in that morning session, when England did find the right length, as Brydon Cast did here to Tom Latham, bowled full, swinging the ball back in to the left-handed Latham from very full. That second delivery, the third one, a slight wobble seam angled across, but the length is the important part of that, the dismissal. Now, here's one I made earlier, just pulling out of my back pocket. The seam position for those first two deliveries, this is what Tom Latham would have been looking at. Those first two balls, the seam would have been pointing towards where a leg slip is. That's why that ball angled in towards his pads, and that's what drew him in to playing that shot. With the third delivery, the seam would have just changed slightly to a wobble seam grip, and that seam would have wobbled across him and angled across, and it caught that slight little outside edge of Tom Latham's bat, and it got England that breakthrough. But they missed an opportunity in the very last over of that session. Ben Stokes bowling round the wicket. He'd struggled to find his length, but there was the faintest little scratch. We can see on Ultra Edge in just a second, but Stokes and both Pope didn't think that there was an edge here. This was in the last over, and it would have meant that New Zealand would have gone to lunch 104 for 3. England opted not to review that, and New Zealand ended up at lunch 104 for 2. And definitely after winning the toss and bowling first, it was New Zealand who had the better of that morning session.
Beautiful stuff, Finny. I mean, that just all went perfectly. So get back over here. Otherwise, we would have made you stand in that part of the studio for the rest of the day. We've had, Cookie, we've kind of had the bowling union perspective on how the morning session, you know, it didn't play out as well as it might have done, perhaps, but we've had the explainer for that. You wanted to talk a little bit about Latham as well, about how he got out, or about what he was doing generally.
Just very quickly on that, it was great analysis by Stephen, but, you know, he hasn't faced Tom Latham, wouldn't have faced Cast much, and actually it's a subtle variation. So the wobble seam to get him out, but actually the one coming into him, the first two balls, you have to try and identify that in the hand as it's coming down. So therefore you know it's coming in. And I reckon he thought, you know, that it was the same ball. So the wobble seam, he kind of outfoxed Latham. And I was just thinking, probably it's because Latham hasn't faced Cast much. He'll get get familiar with bowlers over the series, and I think he'll be aware of that coming up.
So it's a fluke.
Well, it's not a fluke, but it's just that when you face someone a lot, you know what they're doing. Actually, when you haven't faced someone, the tricks they have are unseen. And I just think it probably surprised him, because those balls coming in, you love them in there. But the one holding cross and nicking off, very good bowling. But Latham will be aware of that in the next innings.
OK, well, that was mainly focusing on the morning session. The afternoon session was more of a Kane Williamson show. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I mean, I just love watching this guy bat. I called him a modern great before the break, and he is. He's an absolute wonderful player. The two things for me is the stillness at the crease and how late he plays the ball. If I could have changed one thing about my game, is how late you can play the ball. You know, he plays it so much under your eyes. We're going to watch the first couple of his first few balls of his innings. So watchful. Finney said that England bowled a little bit short, but they maybe did. But he's such a good lever of the ball. Great judgment. I think he's left the ball 1,200 times in his 10 years in Test cricket and not got out to doing it. And that's the bowler. It's so frustrating because you're trying to bowl the right areas and he just calmly lets it go. Look, I think it was naught off the first 15 balls. Very, not bothered at all. Then you watch how late he plays that. I love this. Look, it's right under his eyes. Nothing can go wrong from a batter. He's not poking at the ball. If it nips, he's got the time to adjust. I know a lot of New Zealand players love trying to copy him how he played that one, the late. And why it's so good is when he does get it slightly wrong there, he nicked the ball, great bowling for cast at fuller length, but he let the ball come, so he didn't push at the ball the final nick, he didn't carry to the slip. So he's made a mistake, but his technique has looked after him.
So at the end there, of course, what happened was, at the point where you get to 90 odd, if you're Kane Williamson, people are expecting him to go on. Yeah. What's happened?
Well, he unusually gets out in the 90s for the first time since, I think it's 2018. That was it, 2018. We're remembering that stat. But when you're a bowler and you've got the bowl against him, the first 20, 30 balls, he gives you nothing. So then you start getting a bit tired into your second spell, and he's so strong at capitalising on that as well. So just before he got out, he weathered the storm, which you called it, and he's so strong pulling the ball on a slow wicket. We've got some footage of him here, just devastating on anything which England then lose their line, because this is now in the 20th over. Stokes, he's bowled a few balls, second spells, third spells, and he misses. He absolutely punishes. What do you like facing when you've bowled at Kane in the past? What's it like at the top of your mark, thinking, am I going to get him out, or the mental process you go through?
Yeah, well, I didn't like it all that much, to be quite frank. He's the sort of player who just makes you feel like you're bowling unbelievably slow. And I went through periods in my career where I could bowl quite quick and you feel like you're rushing good players. But some of those deliveries that we ran through in that first analysis set there of the forward defences, he plays it off the back foot, he waits for it right under his eyes and he defends it off the full face of the bat to third slip or gully behind you. And you're there thinking, that's as good as I've got. I've bowled my best ball there, good length, nipping away. He's waited, played it right under his eyes, and off the full face of the bat, it's just dribbled at half a mile an hour towards third slip, who's picked it up, and everyone out there's thinking, oh no, Kane Williamson's on one again here. He's a marvellous player, and the wall that England are going to have to get through at some stage in this series if they're to win it.
And of course, he started very, very slowly in the morning session as well, didn't he? And is that part of it? We talked a lot when you've been doing the white ball stuff with us on TNT. We talked about these kind of classic Test cricketers. Is that part of his genius?
Yeah, for me it is. Yeah, the way England play, they go hard at the ball early on, and I want to put the pressure back on the opposition bowler from ball one. He's very happy to soak up that pressure, soak up the time, and then when the ball gets softer, it gets easier conditions to bat. That is why he cashes in, and that's why it's a surprise that he got out in the 90s, because he's so good at playing those innings. Big innings, which are setting up the things. So he'll be there. Everyone's saying, great, he's come back. He's played so nicely for 90. But how many times does he score off the back foot through that area? I mean, when we played against him, we actually he got a brilliant 100 at Lords, and we didn't have a third man. We put a third man in because he scored so many runs down to third man. So that, for him, it's a rather execution error rather than anything else. And a bit of enjoyment of the catch, the old crocodile fingers from Crawley, I think, there for at point where he's normally at slip. But another masterclass of how to bat, but great players sit there at 90 and all they ever think about is missing out hundreds.